Good, it's working.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank
Hi,
you.
How
how
are
are
you?
you?
Good. Good to see you.
I know it's so nice to meet you via Zoom. Hopefully someday we'll meet in person.
For sure. I would love that. Hopefully, if we get to Long Island, I'd love to come to the store.
Yes, please let me know if you ever do.
Yeah. I'm just gonna rename myself. I don't know why it keeps going back to there we go.
How has your book tour been going?
Um, it's been going really well, I mean, it's so interesting how different events have different feeling to them.
Yeah,
And also I've been surprised by some that I was sort of like, is anyone going to show up to this? Like it might have been like the warmest, most receptive crowd, and then other ones where I'm like, this is going to be a no-brainer. I have so many people here.
yeah.
So it's full of surprises. But I just got the good news that it's a USA Today bestseller.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about
Oh,
that.
that is so exciting. That's amazing. I totally get what you mean about the book tour. Like, are people going to show up or not? I have that all the time when I do book events
Oh
and
yeah.
with authors all the time. And I was just saying that to a close friend of mine. I'm like, oh my God, I hope people like check in tonight. And I like, because everybody is so busy, especially right now. So I get really stressed out
I
about
know.
all this.
Totally.
So I get it.
I've just learned like almost to have no expectations and that you never know. Like it can be three people and it could end up like one person can fall in love with the book from that meeting and
Yeah.
tell 10 friends about it, or you just can't quantify these things, I don't think.
That's,
Yeah.
that's a really good attitude. I like that.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, good. Amanda's here. Good. Well, I'll start in a couple of minutes. I'm just going to do like a really quick introduction. I'll wait
Yeah.
like one more minute and then anyone can jump in. But I was going to do a quick introduction. And then I have like some questions for you too, but I loved all your book club questions.
Yeah, but you ask questions because I also kind of love thinking on my feet. So if you have them, yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, good. All right. Well, I'll just start. And I know we have more people joining, but I'm just going to go ahead and start. So thank you everybody for being here. I'm thrilled. Everybody knows that I started this book club in January, and Nicole is our first book club meeting where the author is going to be in discussion with us, which is really exciting. And that was sort of my like goal when I started doing this. So I'm thrilled. Nicole is our first one. Nicole, I'm just going to give a really quick background on Nicole. Nicole grew up in New York. That's right, Nicole, right? I mean, I
Yeah,
know you went to Chapin with Amanda. Okay. So
correct.
Nicole grew up in New York City. She actually went to Chapin with my sister-in-law, Amanda. And then her husband went to college with me at Colgate. Um, Nicole graduated from Cornell. She got her MFA from Emerson College, and she got her MFA while she was that must have been not too long ago, right, Nicole? Because you had three kids at the time.
Yeah, it was when my youngest turned two.
Okay,
So,
so how long ago was that then?
7 years. Yeah.
Okay, okay, wow. Okay, that's
Mhm.
amazing. Um, and since then, she has been written up in numerous publications, one of which was her essay that's in here, As You Like It, Learning to Follow My Child, was selected as one of the best American essays for 2024. And that was alongside with your professor, which was so cool.
Yeah, yes, Gerald Walker, who's an
Yeah,
amazing writer.
I
Mhm.
loved that so much.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I'm going to let you just jump in, but I have a really quick question because I know this book, you must have written this book over several years. Is that right? Okay.
Mhm.
So I was trying to figure this out when I was today. How old are your kids now?
So now my youngest is 9. My son, he just turned 12 yesterday, and my oldest is 15.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I know it's strange because a lot of people who don't know me, who read the book, like if they see a photo, because my kids have been on booked some of my book tour with me or some of my book events, and if they see photos, are sort of shocked because they picture, my youngest was the earliest essay, my youngest was 3 in it. So
Okay,
yeah.
that's wild.
It's a big difference.
Yes, for sure. Okay, well, I'll let you take off.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Finley, and it's fun to see Amanda. Hi.
Hi. Sorry, I
Um,
can't mute myself. And sorry, I'm at a baseball game. So
life, motherhood life. Um, and yeah, I was so thrilled when Finley asked me to do this. So happy to be here. And I just sort of, I don't have any particular script to follow, but I thought maybe I would start by reading a little from the book, maybe from the opening.
That sounds great.
Yeah, and then we can take it from there. I don't know if you've read the book yet. If you haven't read the book, that sort of colors the discussion. So do we have a sense here? Like, I don't know how we do.
Let me see who's here. I think it's probably a mixture. I think a few close friends of mine are on this, and they might have read a few of them. I know
Okay.
the majority of the people probably in the book club have read it. I know Amanda has definitely because
I
she was
read it.
on the beach with me when she
Yeah.
started it.
I read a couple of them,
Great.
I've read
Okay.
some.
Okay. So that makes me want to maybe rethink and maybe read from something a little bit later. I think I will. I think I'll read from Shake Zone because yeah, it's a little bit later. Okay, this is from an essay called Shake Zone. I'm 17 and driving fast on a 2-lane highway with the windows open. It's late afternoon, that hour when the day's edges are singed gold. I'm alone, and because I've recently gotten my license, this aloneness is a thing of wonder. The light in the eastern Long Island sky seems to be telling me something, promising me something. I press my foot to the pedal of my mother's ancient Volvo station wagon, barreling headlong into this promise, into the golden wildness of it. In a few weeks, I will leave home for college. Maybe it's the closeness of this freedom I feel as I turn up the knob on the radio and sing along to Pearl Jam's elderly woman behind the counter in a small town, banging my hand against the dashboard, knowing with certainty as I zoom past the Rite Aid and Joe's Pizzeria that Eddie Vedder is singing to me. His thrashing, plaid-shirted body, the same one I've watched him hurl into a mosh pit dozens of times in the Even Flow video, is here in the car with me. But instead of falling into the arms of a concert crowd, it is falling into me. I can feel Eddie Vedder against my chest, Eddie Vedder on my skin, and I press my foot down harder on the gas, my heart the most powerful pumping thing in the world. I've shed all that I was just minutes ago. Dutiful girl, rule-loving girl, girl with the anxious knee bouncing, with something inside that needs to get out. I'm heading to a party where anything could happen. I could drink a Smirnoff and orange juice, or I could not. I could let my hand brush against Nick Meyer's hand as if by accident, or I could not. I could dance or not dance, barefoot on the grass, with my head tilted back and my arms stretched up to the moon. What I know is that I have endless days, months, years ahead to rub myself up against the moment, to grab the moment by the back of the neck and pull its forehead to mine, to press our mouths hard together. The AC is broken and the backs of my thighs stick to the car seat, which is hot and seamed with sand. I turn up the volume. I am nearly screaming now. I can feel the bass in my ribs and something spreading deep in my belly that's like joy, but dangerous. Power, desire, maybe both. This is what it is to be 17 years old, the whole night, and my whole life ahead of me. So that's just a little taste from this essay. but I think it's a good, in some ways, a good entry point into the book as a whole. Because what follows that passage, if you haven't read it yet, is, you know, that whole essay was kind of sparked by a moment that I had after I was a mother. And I dropped my kids off. I don't know how many of you are mothers on this Zoom, but I dropped my kids off.
I think everybody is.
Everybody is.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm looking who's here. Yeah.
Okay, so I dropped my kids off at drop off at school in the morning. They were a little younger, so I think things do get easier on a day-to-day basis, even though they get harder in existential ways as your kids get older. But drop them off at school, and I always felt when my kids are younger, like that moment when they're all out of the car, like it's almost a sacred moment, like it's like the whole day was ahead of me, and I still had my morning buzz from my coffee in my blood, and was like pulling out of the drive-through drop off, feeling really good. And it's like a beautiful sunny day, and I'm driving home, and that song, Pearl Jam's Elderly Woman Behind the Counter in a Small Town, comes on. And just by chance. And as I'm driving, I'm totally reminded, I'm having this memory of being 17 years old and, so free and so sort of, unleashed and full of excitement, full of desire. And I felt exactly that same way in that moment, right? As a, 44-year-old woman. Um, and, I was just sort of taken by this truth or this reality that, from the outside, I look very different, and the circumstances of my life are very different, and I have all of these responsibilities, and my body looks different. But like that girl's still there, like almost like the Russian nesting dolls, right? Like that we contain all of our future selves. It didn't feel like a memory. It wasn't like, oh, that was me back then and this is me now. It was like, oh, there she is. She's like right there inside me. And so I wrote this book very much. I started writing it when my children were quite young. So like two, um, 4 and 7 about. And, there were many wonderful things and wonderful transformational things about becoming a mother, but I also did feel in many ways that I had lost myself, that I was sort of haunted by this feeling that I was moving through the world at once myself and not myself. And that I was sort of always striving to fit this image of mother with a capital M. And started to write these essays as a way to kind of break through that template to say, when we become a mother, we don't stop being the complex, the nuanced person we are before. We don't stop desiring. We don't stop if we are married, finding ourselves maybe attracted to other people, like all these stories that we're supposed to tell, right? About ways that parts of us die after we become mothers, I wanted to push back again. So that's just sort of an overview of the book, and all of the essays really chart my journey to question and sort of poke at the different templates that are imposed on women over the course of the female lifespan. So motherhood being one of them, but sort of argue in the book that girl with a capital G is a kind of template. There really is a way that we are supposed to be girls in our culture. There's almost a right way to do girlhood. And then, once you graduate from girlhood and become a young adult woman, it's sort of the sort of sex object or ingenue is sort of, the sort of template that is pushed upon us. And then, you can become a mother in your adult childbearing years, or you can become a childless cat lady. I mean, there's really like almost two options in our culture. you know, it's very limited, these options, of ways of being, sort of sanctioned ways of being for women. And then my book ends in the latter half, with sort of looking at middle age, which is where this essay comes in, and sort of contemplating what templates are available to the aging woman, if any.
Well, I'm just going to jump in right now because I was speaking to a friend who loved your book and she was not able to come because she had a longstanding like celebration birthday dinner that she does every year. So long story, she couldn't come, but she said, we like talked about it for a while. And she said, you have to tell her, like, I feel like this book is not finished. She, and I kind of agree with her because she and I are both quote unquote empty nesters,
Yeah.
which is a word I don't really like because I don't feel like I'm an empty nester because my youngest is 16 and she's in boarding school and I see her, I feel like I see my kids all the time. And so I don't feel that way at all, but I know a lot of people do feel this like horrible emptiness when they're become empty nesters. So
Sure.
we were saying there's so much, like, I feel like once your kids are in college, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is a whole new world. It's going to be a new book. I really think
It's
that.
going to be a sequel. Good. My agent's like, what's next? I've got to get the kids out of the house so I can.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, because, and actually this was really fun for me to read because I forgot my kids are 24, 22, 19, and 16. So I'm like in a different stage, but I'd forgotten about all those moments. And anyway, it just, it's very true because you do feel that way when you're a mother. And interestingly enough, like another thing I'm just going to quickly say, and Amanda was with me when this happened. We were at a dinner party in March and one of my closest friends that I went to college with said, I hate getting asked the question, what do you do? And she is a mother as well. And everybody was at the table. And she's like, and I've actually now started to lie and say, I'm retired. I was in finance to shut people up. Because she's like, so we were all talking about that feeling, like this horrible, like, what do you say when people say to you, what do you do?
Right.
I'm just a mother, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has felt like that who's on Zoom but anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I write about that a little bit in the book, right? You know, I think that it's so easy, like, you know, and I count myself guilty of this, and I am a mother, right? I think it is so easy to downplay or to forget about or to even sometimes denigrate the complex, multi-layered intellectual undertaking that is raising children.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exhausting, but it's like, I think that, you know, motherhood is very often culturally, you know, ascribed to the realm of feeling and maternal instinct, right? This idea that, you know, that it's almost like ingrained in women to have this maternal feeling, and that raising children is really mostly about, it's bound up in emotion, right? That it's like the love that brings us to the work. And that's definitely true. It's very hard to be a good parent if you don't have strong, positive feelings toward your children. But when I think about, you know, my own moves and actions and decisions on a day-to-day basis as a parent, those are rooted in thinking, right? And I was really inspired by this philosopher, Sarah Ruddick, who wrote this essay in the 80s, actually, called Maternal Thinking. And this is basically what she argues or points out, is that mothering is a mode of thinking. It's an intellectual discipline like any other intellectual discipline, in the sense that, you know, as a mother, you are drawing on all these different resources that you have in real time to do the best job you can do to create this human. And you're drawing, you know, you're sort of collecting data, you're observing, you're responding in real time, you're making hypotheses testing them out and then refining those hypotheses. You are being on any given day both like a nutritionist, like a doctor. You're answering like questions, everything from, why do I have to do this to like, why are owls awake at night? Like it's the sort of the complexity of what a caregiver does is sort of astounding when you think about it. So yeah, it's maddening actually when you think about everything that mothers do, and that then we would be feel like we have to lie, because our culture makes us feel lesser than for that work, like there's nothing more important than it, so yeah, I could go on. I could go on and on and on, as you can probably tell. Yeah, and I think I think it's also because so much care work is invisible that a lot of that.
You said that in the book, and I love this part so much where you're like, Paul took your youngest, I think it was your youngest, to a birthday party.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, that's great. Like I have a moment to myself, but it's not, all this other stuff isn't like, nobody knows all the stuff I did behind the scenes.
Right, like to get to that, like
Exactly.
Paul would show up at the birthday party and they'd be like, he's an engaged dad, but I'm like, okay, I have, fielded the invitation, done the RSVP, I've gotten the birthday present, I've made sure that like the favorite outfit that she likes to wear to birthday parties is like washed and ready by the time I've figured out like who's driving her home, like all of these things, that go on behind the scenes. And I think there has been like a deeper appreciation and acknowledgement of mental load in recent years. Sort of like all of the busy work that mothers are taxed with. But I still don't think that there's much appreciation or acknowledgement of the complexity of the deeper work, like the deeper work of creating humans who are good citizens, who have strong ethics, who do more good in the world than harm, who clean up after themselves, like all the things that we're trying to do to create good humans, like that's profound, and the idea that somebody gets like more props for our culture for being like a middle manager at an auto company, like then like doing that is, something's a little off, so.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. Okay, so I have one of my other questions, and my friend who I spoke to earlier who couldn't come was the same thing. She was like, we were both wondering, how did your mom feel about this book? And do your children read it too?
So they've read, it depends which child you're talking about, because they're such different ages.
I think I think probably this friend was thinking about your oldest.
Yeah.
Probably.
So my kids have read the portions that pertain to them.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, and this is what I've said to my youngest, it's like, it's not a book for 9-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
if you think about like if you think about the content in it, like even if I wasn't their mother, it's not really an age appropriate book for a 9-year-old. But yes, like I think about this a lot. I think any memoirist or personal essayist has to kind of arrive at their own almost personal philosophy or approach to writing about real people, because our lives intersect with others. And especially if you're a writer like me, who's, what interests me most in the world are like the hidden nuances of interpersonal relationships. So it's like, and so to kind of like get in there, that's what I'm interested in as a writer.
Okay.
Yeah, but my children have seen the parts that they are in specifically. Yeah. And, my approach to talking about real people who appear in my book about their being in my book was always to involve them early in the
Okay.
sense that it's like in the sense that um, I can see how it could be very jarring if someone were to hand me like a finished book or an almost finished book and to say, here, like, here's how I portrayed you. Like, do you have any issues with it? Right. Um, like I was tried to be really honest with people I love about what I was trying to do as I was doing it. If
Mhm.
that makes sense, right? So
Yes.
whether I was like, maybe it was my oldest, and when I was trying to sort of grapple as I do in an essay with my new experience of mothering a gender nonconforming child, I told them as I was working on that, like they know I'm a writer. They know that I work through a lot of my thinking on paper and said, I'm writing this piece where I'm trying to sort of explore um, my own growth in coming to parent you. And, I think 9 times out of 10, like those conversations were really like nourishing conversations. I can't put myself into the head of the people I was talking with, but from my perspective,
I
it seemed like a nourishing conversation. Yeah.
I get it.
Mhm.
Okay, one more, my other question, then I'm gonna let other people jump in.
Yeah.
The new pretty essay, which I really loved, was when your daughter, you decided, okay, I'm gonna stop dyeing my hair. And I don't know if it was your youngest, I think it was, who said, oh gosh, mom, I don't like that
But
about
when
your
I was
gray
decided
hair.
I was going to start, because
Yeah,
let's
you
be
were gonna
clear.
start. Okay, that's what it was. We're gonna start. And
Yeah.
I've had the exact same experience with my youngest before, like a lot. I mean, she's been to me like, I can't believe you've never had Botox. You're the only one I know, like things like that. Like, so, I mean, it's really funny, but I'm just saying, it's really interesting how I think, was that something that you just decided as the years went by that you were more because it sounds like it was different from the way that you were raised, because your mom was really into, or your grandmother into the makeup. I got the sense that they wouldn't probably have left the house without wearing makeup. Is
No,
that wrong? Okay, that's what I thought. Okay,
definitely not. Yeah, no. My mother even uses like lip, like I think she doesn't, I don't think I've ever seen her lips. It's possible I've never seen um, it's like chapstick.
okay.
But a color. Yeah. I think, yes. I mean, what I'm exploring in that essay, The New Pretty, is sort of the ideas about beauty we do inherit from the mothers before us, grandparents, and our culture. Um, and really grappling with how I became more troubled by those norms or expectations once I was the mother of two girls. And how, I went to an all-girl school like Amanda growing up. Like I've like one of my main modes of looking at the world and thinking about the world is through womanhood. Like I've just always been really aware of my femaleness and had a sort of feminist lens. So before I had children, I could look at the world and critique it and be like, have an awareness of the ridiculous standards for thinness. And I grew up in the 90s, Kate Moss and all of this. And I could intellectually critique all of that while also following it. Because one of the things that I'm trying to convey in this book is in any of the cultural observation or cultural critique that I do is that if only it were easy enough as to say, this is what's wrong in our culture and I reject that. But the problem is that the culture is in us, right? So I don't know about any of you, but I so often experience this split where I can intellectually understand that it's not the best use of my time to stand in my bathroom blow drying my hair straight for 25 minutes. But I absorbed, right, that like I feel my best, I will be my best. People will respond to me better. I will have a better day. I will move into the world more strongly if my hair looks a certain way. So we're so divided. But having children tipped me more to to the critique side. And because it was no longer just me turning against my own body because of cultural messages. Like I went through a period in college and a little beyond of having an eating disorder. And that was not great. But the idea that as I had daughters and was charged with caring for their perfect bodies, the idea that they would one day be taught to hate their bodies or to turn against their bodies or to do violence to their bodies in some way was very activating. So that's what sort of led me to make some incremental changes. Yeah.
I could go on and on, everyone, but does anybody else want to jump in and have any comments? Or Nicole, do you want to talk about stuff that didn't come up or you'd like to talk about in these, author discussions?
Oh, well, I'll open it to everyone else first.
Okay.
See if anyone has any questions, anything they want to talk about, any part, if you've read or even read a little that struck you or that you connected with, anything you're curious about.
I found it, hi, I'm Ingrid. I found
Hi.
it so interesting to hear you say just now that you're really fascinated, a lot of your exploration and writing is thinking about the nuances of kind of personal relationships. And I found it so fascinating because we get to know you as an author so well, and you're very honest and open, and so we get to hear, how excited you sort of secretly are when Lee puts on a girly outfit, right, when you're struggling. But at the same time, kind of how difficult it can be to sort of, bridge that and get to know other people as well, whether it's your mom who hid this, secret for so long and you thought you knew her, and, or Lee as she's struggling with her gender identity, or your husband, or whoever it is. And so that's one of the things that I found so interesting about the book is just these thinking about, being so open and honest, and looking back at, your interactions with these people who you're really close to, but at the same time sort of didn't always know. And that's really, I guess, that's life, right? We have all of these relationships with people that we spend a lot of time with. And sometimes like we discover things about them and we're just like floored because we were like, but I didn't know them. How did I not know them? And that's something that I really, this book really made me reflect on that notion.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And yeah, I'm fascinated by that too, which is where like the other fictional characters part of the title comes in, right? That we are all of the idiosyncrasies and layers that make us who we are. And there's always this facade, right? There's always going to be some level of fiction in what people see of us, and even how we internalize ourselves. Yeah, and I think part of what compelled me to write or to tell some of these truths or to be open, was that I think there's a psychic burden that women in particular carry, of having to put on a certain front a lot. And I think that I'll speak for myself, but like it wore on me. Like I felt, it really wore on me, to the point where when I began writing, I started telling these truths and trying to get to them almost out of desperation, if that makes sense. Like to really like brush off all of this stuff I'd been carrying, like take off the heavy armor and just speak more freely. Yeah.
And thereby getting to know yourself even more. It's that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also, well, I mean, the altruistic part of this, right? Like I can say like part of why I wanted to do it was because, and I did think as I was writing it, like the hope that people would come to the book eventually, readers would come to the book and it might give them permission, right? To do the same, or it might make them feel like they're not alone, in some way if they share some of these feelings or experiences. But less altruistically, just selfishly, I wrote it because I also was like almost putting a hand out into the dark saying like, any of you feel any of you feel this way too? Like, can we just cut through all this stuff, please, and get on Zoom? Um, uh, yeah, so it was very, yeah, I mean, I think writing it did help me get more comfortable with a lot of things in that sense. Yeah.
Um, was it who decided the order of the essays? I was curious about that too.
I did. Because I wanted to tell a story through them, which is why it's a memoir and essays, rather than structurally, why I think of it as a memoir and essays rather than a straight essay collection. Um, so I really, as I sort of alluded to earlier, I really wanted the essays to explore different stages of the female lifespan.
Okay.
And so the earlier essays touch more, it's not strict, it's not like here are the first three or this,
Yeah.
the second three or this, but the earlier essays touch more on girlhood experiences, my discovery of my mother's affair, like how I developed my ideas about beauty, female friendship, right, and how our early friendships form us, and then examining, my oldest and like how their experience of girlhood, right, is very different. And then moving into the middle, the middle of the book is really focused on the experience of motherhood in a concentrated way. And then the essays toward the end are more about the crone or the aging female. And in fact, the last essay, Memento Mori, is really a contemplation of death. So it really like covers the whole lifespan, and then it moves chronologically too, in the sense that my family is younger in the earlier essays than my children grow, and they're older in the end, the final essays. So it almost moves chronologically in two ways. And then there's also, I kind of describe it as putting together a mixtape, because I'm dating myself here, but you don't want to have like 3 slow songs followed by like 8 techno songs. Like I wanted there to be like some light, a lighter moment and then like a really cerebral one, and to kind of balance out that feeling.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you have? You talk about so many authors in here that you grew up with and you love them and they totally probably helped shape the author that you became. Do you have any authors, I'm going to call the word modern day, not modern day, but like maybe new authors or authors that just debut authors that you were really excited about or that you've been recently introduced to and that may not be in this book?
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I can tell you who, like, I feel like there are certain writers that I feel like they're kindred spirits, contemporary writers who I feel like are kindred spirits, or whose work I've really admired, or whose work kind of inspired aspects of the book. I love the writer Joanne Beard. I love everything by Claire Dederer. Has anyone here read any of her books?
Say it again, Nicole. What was her name?
Oh, Claire Dederer.
Okay. No, I don't think so.
She wrote she's a memoirist, but she wrote most recent book is Monsters, which is
Oh, yeah.
which is a book about um, an examination of what do we do with the art of monstrous people, like incredible art created by deeply flawed, problematic humans. Um, but it's really a memoir. It's much more personal than that sounds. So she's brilliant. I love um, I love Leslie Jameson's essays. She has a book Splinters that and a memoir Splinters that came out last year. Um, I love everything by Danny Shapiro.
I do too.
Yeah.
She's so great. I did a book event with her, and I was so psyched to meet her in person. I like her book so much too.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
They're both like smart but accessible. Um, yeah, and so that yeah, she was an inspiration in that way. I wanted readers to think but be moved, right? And to feel very welcome, like very like because sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I feel like books that engage with literature, that bring in research, like that they can make you feel like you don't know enough or, and I wanted to make sure that if I was talking about a work of literature, that I framed it enough that anyone could access the material without having read the book or knowing a lot about the author or any of that. Um, yeah, I mean, unsurprisingly, I read mostly nonfiction. Some of my favorite memoirs of the past couple of years, Easy Beauty, that's an amazing memoir, by Chloe Cooper Jones,
Okay.
which is about um, it's about many things, but um, it's about disability, being a mother, while also being disabled, and also about beauty, about body image and beauty. It's a great book.
Oh, I have to check these out. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about, or questions or comments? No. Okay. Nicole, anything for you?
Oh, I mean, I have lots of things that I could talk about. One of the things that I talk about, I think, a lot in the book is how becoming a mother shifted my understanding of my own mother. And I didn't know if that was something that resonates with people, or if that's something that you've experienced as well.
Well, I think it was such a different paradigm with our mothers because like you say, the challenges of, the intellectual challenges, not so much of our mothers, there was a lot more autopilot of kids, send them out in the yard and let them play, and then I think with our generation, it was like we're making these tailor-made kids, setting up the play dates, setting up all the after school activities, I mean, I don't think all our mothers necessarily read to us as much as we read to our children. And, I mean, not that they were great mothers. I mean, I think our own mothers taught us more resilience than an independence than we've kind of been cultured to teach our kids, because I think we're there like nurturing our children at every at every step,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
you kind of, I think, I find myself a lot saying like my mother never would have tolerated this, because I think they were much more practical, I think, than we were.
I think that's so true. Yeah, I write about that. I did a little research into that actually, for the book. And I even describe my own childhood, how, there's so much I always felt, especially when my children were younger, this great pressure to play with them. And I'm like, I'm not really a playful person. Like play to me is like sitting in front of my computer, like, writing. Um, so that was really hard for me. But I remember then thinking like, did my mother ever play with me? Like I think she maybe like played Battleship with me a couple times, or like,
Yeah.
I don't know, once in a while the family played Monopoly, or she'd like, I don't know, swap in for my brother. It definitely was not a big part
It's
of my
much more
life.
hierarchical, I think. Your parents, like when we were growing up, we had a big family, and we would have dinner, and then my parents would have dinner, when my father got home, and where I think I just think as families, this we were much more integrated um in terms of kind of all the nuances of our children's lives.
I think it's really true. And
That's true.
I
and
think
it takes
there's
that.
there's a paragraph I was trying to find in one of your later essays where you talk about how the older your kids get, the more you think your job is to kind of like step away and let them kind of be and let them and that sort of
Yeah, I
captured
mean,
a bit that
I don't know if
yeah.
you're thinking of the moment um in a place or a state of affairs where I'm trying to
Yes.
play with my daughter. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a scene where I I'm home alone with my youngest, and it was such a rare occasion because, with three kids, and I usually have two of them around at least, and I realized suddenly that I was home alone with her. She was pretty young, 4 or 5, and um, and she was playing, and I really thought I was like, I have a moment. I should connect with my youngest. I should go sit down and I should insert myself into her stuffed animal game, And so I go over and I really think I'm being a good mom. I'm like, what are you playing? Like, what's the bear doing? And she's like kind of not having it. And then she just finally is like, Mommy, like, can I just want to play alone? Like, can I play alone? Um and it was kind of one of those small moments, in parenting that reframed things for me. Like I had carried so much guilt, that I wasn't engaging more. And then I just realized, that maybe in this age of kind of constant togetherness, constant stimulation, constant intake of content,
And
that
parent, to Marianne's point, parent directed as opposed to kind of child directed. Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may be one of the most important jobs that I can do, especially for my daughters, because I think girls are called upon, increasingly as they become women to give of their solitude, to give of themselves, to do the emotional labor and to be selfless and so forth, all these messages that we get. Um, to teach her from a young age that I will protect her solitude, like to get to that is actually a role that we can play, is to say, even if it's a sibling, leave this child alone and let them
Right.
have their time. Yeah.
Well, I think that's like, it's so true because in this day and age, there's a lot of people who don't really know how to be alone. I know that sounds really strange, but it's like a little bit of an art because I have some kids, of my 4 kids, I have a few that really love to be alone, like are so excited when they're going to be home alone in the house. They are thrilled. And then I have maybe one child who definitely does not like that at all. So I think it's an interesting
Yeah.
thing. And there's probably some reason why that one child doesn't like that. I don't know. Like there's probably a whole
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's built into our temperament to some extent, but
yeah.
there is all kinds of research too about, how boredom is good in small doses,
Yeah.
how it leads to creativity or creative thinking. And I see that. It's funny, we're moving not far, we're just moving 10 minutes away in my town, but we've had to pack everything up for house show, for people to come and see
Mhm.
our house. So my kids have like nothing to, I mean, we still have some books around, And it's been interesting to watch how they have to be like more resourceful about what they do with their time. You know, I notice that they're going outside more. It's interesting, you know, when these things are subtracted, what resources kids have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say one more thing just to end it. Because I just was thinking about this as we're talking. There's a moment when you go to Vermont. You just need time alone, and you say to Paul, "I just need to go to. I think it'd be like a good idea if I have a long weekend by myself." I'm like, "Oh my God, I remember those days. I used to want to be alone so much, and I would do that. I would like go escape to Shelter Island. I'd make something up. I'd be like, I have to go to Shelter Island by myself. I'll be back in 24 hours or 48 hours. I did
Yeah,
that a lot.
important work.
Yeah. But it changes. That's why I can't wait for you to write a second book when your kids are older, because it really does change.
I know that. And do you want to know why I know that? So I've been on this book tour that's winding down now, but it's taken me away from my family a lot. And I can track the difference in how I feel about it because I have the book to remind me what it used to feel like. And when I used to go away, like, you know, if I could get away when my kids were little, I would get out of the house and it would be like I was in the desert, like gulping at water, you know?
Yeah.
It was like, you know, and I felt guilty. It was both of those things, right? Like I felt both like I was gasping for air and I carried this great guilt. And now, because my kids are so much more independent, like when I left, you know, for a few days to go to California for these book events, for instance, I didn't have that gasping for air feeling because they spend so much time now, you know, on their own doing homework, you know, with friends. Um, and I didn't have the guilt. What I had in a way that I never had when my kids were younger was a feeling of being bereft, you know, a feeling of like, oh, do they care that I'm gone? Like I miss them. It was a total shift. And so, you know, yeah, all of these things they change all the time, right? Like these
Sure.
dynamics.
Yeah. Well, does anybody else have anything else?
Oh, I
I
had
just have a
one
question.
question. Oh,
I had
sorry.
one. I had one. With these, the authors that you wove into so many of your experiences, were these sort of you know, your very favorite growing up too?
Some of them, I mean, most of them, I think I discovered as you know, in adulthood, you know, either young adulthood, college or beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, that, I
Um,
meant that. Yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting because I think anyone who's an avid reader, like Finley, I'm sure you feel this way. Like if you're somebody who reads a lot, um, the boundary between the boundary between my reading life and my actual life is really thin, you know? So I could be reading something and working on the book and then, you know, realizing how whatever I was reading, whatever novel I was reading kind of connected with the book. And then conversely, I might be writing, you know, about, for instance, like my longing for solitude when my children were younger. And then it would trigger in me, you know, texts that I encountered when I was younger that shaped my idea of solitude. So I don't think they're all necessarily like favorite writers, but they're definitely writers who either I knew made an impact on me, like Kate Chopin, like I remembered, you know, her making an impact on me, or, and this was kind of like even more fun, when authors showed up in my work who I didn't realize had influenced me or had a profound effect on me. Like when Philip Roth showed up, I was like, what are you doing here? Okay. Now I'm writing about Portnoy's complaint, you know, and thinking about Sophie Portnoy and thinking about, you know, how her character kind of shaped my thinking about motherhood. So yeah, I think it's like all of these reading experiences were tucked away and then started to announce themselves.
Oh,
Amanda.
I had a question, Nicole. I loved it. I loved every story, and I
Thank
was
you.
wondering, but sort of the process, like, did you write each story on its own, or did you kind of go back and forth between the stories? Were you going to kind of add something to one story and then you decided to add it to another story, or just sort of how did that all come about? Because I love sort of the ebb and flow of each one. They each were so unique and, you know, kept our attention.
Thank you. So when I started writing the book, I actually didn't know that I was writing a book. I was writing, like, as I described earlier, like individual essays that I intended to kind of, I never thought of them beyond that. They were standalone essays that I published in literary journals. But after I'd written 3 of them, I started to realize that they were all circling around the same themes. Even if on the surface the content differed, that at its heart, they were all exploring the boundaries or the line between truth and fiction, when one is a woman. And so then I started to envision a bigger scope, you know, for the essays. And that's when I sort of started to think about the templates I was talking about, or like the lifespan, and that informed the essays that I wrote and what gaps I wanted to fill in. But definitely worked on them one by one. I'm like always in awe of people who can balance different writing projects. And yeah, I like immerse myself. Writing one essay actually can take me quite some time, like 1 to 3 months. And then I move on. Yeah.
Well, thank you. This was so fun. I loved this.
Me too. Thank you all.
And
I know
please
it's
let us know
hard.
if you make it to Shelter Island, because we would
Thank
love
you.
that.
It's great.
Wait, quick question, Nicole. I have a 9th grader at Chapin. I bought some of my best books at the Chapin Book Fair, at the adult table. I know this isn't targeted towards children, but would you be open to my suggesting it to this book to put on the table for the sort of adult nonfiction and fiction?
Oh yeah, I need to get in touch with them because I think they have like an alumni. It's in the fall, the book
It's in the fall, yeah.
Yeah, because I think they have alumni come. Like maybe I'll come and do something. I don't know.
That
But
would be great. I think a lot of mothers in particular would really enjoy the book, and I think it would be a great, forum and venue for.
Absolutely.
I agree. I think
Oh, great. I feel like they have alumni. Don't they have like an alumni table or like an alumni authors?
I'm sure there's. I can't specifically remember that, but I know that there's. I always love. Suzanne Fogarty Head of School always has a table with her recommendations, which are always. I've really enjoyed a number of things I found on her table, and then they have a kind of general adult table as well. Books that are targeted towards adults. I don't remember whether they have alumni, but. They certainly have different tables with for anything that's sort of child appropriate. They have authors come in and sit at tables and discuss their books with kids who come in.
Yeah. No, I would love that. And I keep thinking like, maybe it'd be fun to do a talk or something. But, no, I agree. There's a lot of mothers there, mothers raising girls and
grappling with these
issues. Absolutely.
And Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah.
Mother's Day is coming up. Yes. So I'm always happy to do book plates or anything. I think it's a good Mother's Day gift.
I think so too. I'm going to put you. That's good to know. I'll reach out to you separately about book plates because that would be awesome to have.
Yeah, for sure.
And thank you for arranging for getting the books. Because Nicole's book was back ordered, everyone. So it's on its second printing, which is so
amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm like, it's a crash course in like a whole aspect of publishing I never had to think about, supply and demand. I'm like, it's good, but then it's also like people are like, I went to my local store.
Quality problem.
Yeah, it is a good problem to have. I agree. Yeah. Well, thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good Mother's Day, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Mother's Day.
Bye.